just tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in Hempstead and played basketball. I saw that there were some basketball players here. And one of my good friends growing up was Julius Erving. And I don't know if the Salvation Army still has a team, which we call the Sal team. But we traveled literally all around Long Island, East Coast, Midwest, playing basketball. And one of the things that I really emphasize about growing up in Hempstead was the relationships that I was able to form. And growing up, I had no idea if I'd go into business. You'd ask me when I was 10, 11, 12, 14 years old, if I would go into business. That was not something that was on my mind because I didn't really have a lot of exposure to what people in business do. But one of the things that I did know was that I wanted to be a leader. I wanted to be a leader of something, and I wanted to make a difference in our society. And the other point that I would make is that I was very fortunate to go to a school called Waldorf School in Garden City. And that was an interesting experience for me because when I think about diversity, it was Hempstead where I grew up, which was mostly black, going into Garden City, which was mostly white. That was two worlds that I was dealing with every day. And what I learned a lot was, I learned a lot about people. I learned about how you overcome perceptions that people have. And one of the things that my father would always talk to me about was focus on the things you can control. And I used to think about that and said, well, I can't control everything. He said, that's my point. Focus on what you can control. One thing you can control is your performance. How you conduct yourself. How you do in school. Because at the end of the day, you're accountable. No matter what age you are, you're accountable for your performance. But it also gives you power. Power to become something and do something. And anything you choose, and I often give this example, and I don't know how many of you have heard of Julius Erving, but he's one of the greatest basketball players. I'm a little bit biased. But the point that I make about Julius Erving was when he was in high school, when he was in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, he was a terrific student, as well as being a great basketball player. And one of the things you want growing up is you want to have options. You want to have choices. And you want to have choices about what you can succeed in. And you want to have choices about some things that you didn't even think were possible. But you want to put yourself in a position where you can make those choices. So one of the things that I talk about is growing up, what do you want to focus on? One is, what are your values and beliefs? What's important to you? What do you want to stand for? Who are your role models? You really do want to think about that. Because at the end of the day, what's most important, ultimately, is what your values and beliefs are, number one. And what people look to is what you stand for. Second, people are going to judge you based on your performance. Third, people are going to judge you based on how you behave. And then there are going to be some people who will judge you for all the wrong reasons. How you look, how you speak, where you're from. And they will not have any justification for those beliefs or perceptions. But at the end of the day, if you have those inner values, if you have those beliefs, if you have a performance, you have something that you can say to yourself, I've got confidence. No matter what someone says to me about what I'm capable of doing. Because what's critical at this stage for you is you want to build confidence. You want to build confidence in yourself, what you can accomplish, and you have to have the attitude. Someone that people respect, someone that people admire, and someone who's going to make a difference in this world. So what I would just say to you is that when people say, well, you must have known that you would become CEO of a big company, I will tell you, I had no idea, as I said. Some people will say to me, well, you must have been a great student always. First 3 years of school, I wasn't a terrific student. Because as I said, I was focused on playing basketball, because I said, I'm going to be a professional basketball player. That's what I'm going to be. But that's only one option. That's not very smart, right? Julius didn't say, I'm going to be a professional basketball player. Julius, I remember talking to him at the park at 10 years old. He said, I'm going to college. That's options. There's nothing wrong with having the aspiration to be a professional basketball player or a football player. But to only have one option in life at 10 or 11 or 12 or 14 or 15, 16 years old, that's not what you want to do. You want to have a range of options. And so, what was important to me is that I really did have a belief that I wanted to make a difference in the world. I didn't know what that difference was going to be. I knew I wanted to be in a position of leadership, and I knew that I wanted to be successful. But what sustained me was the fact that I really had strong beliefs. And fortunately, I went to a school, I went to a church, and I had a family that really stressed to me the importance of being proud about who I am. So I'm very proud about the fact of not just that I'm black, but I'm proud about who I am. Not in an arrogant way, because that's not what it's about. It's confidence in yourself because of what you can do for other people. And confidence in yourself because you're not going to listen to people who tell you you can't do it. Because you can. And I will tell you that if you believe in yourself, if you really have the willingness to work hard, if you identify role models of who you want to emulate, and if you really do create strong values and beliefs, you're going to be incredibly successful. Not just successful in a career, but successful in life, and you'll be someone that people will truly respect. So thank you very much, and I'd be open to take any questions that anyone has. Yes?
How did you first start working at American Express?
I came to American Express a long time ago, before you were born, in 1981. I originally started off as a lawyer, actually practiced law for 2.5 years. And I went to a consulting firm called Bain & Company that did consulting for very large companies. And American Express was recruiting to find someone what they call strategic planning. And strategic planning is someone who works on developing strategies and plans for a company. And the person who recruited me, and this is the way sometimes life works out, was Lou Gerson, who was someone who became not only president of American Express, but also went on to become chairman and chief executive officer of IBM. We operate all over the world. I like the businesses we're in, and what I like about our businesses is you've got to innovate products and services all the time. And what I also like is I like the people that come. So I couldn't really see myself at another company. I get calls once in a while about, would you be interested in becoming CEO of this company? But one of the things that I really value is loyalty. And what was important for me is American Express gave me a set of opportunities when other companies didn't. And I was saying to some folks your age, just to put things in perspective, when I graduated from college, it was a long time, 1973, there was not a single black person who was CEO of a company in the United States. In fact, there was probably not a single black person who was in the top 20 in any company in the United States. So a lot has changed. So a lot has changed since 1981, and I'm going to stay where I am. Someone here, and then I'll get you back.
Where do you see American Express in 20 years from now?
So where do I see American Express 20 years from now? What I would make is American Express has been around for 163 years. And one of the things you want to look at in a company is do they have longevity? There are very few companies that in fact last for more than 20, 30 years. And very few, you can count maybe 10 or 20 major companies that have been around over 100 years. So 163 years is very unusual. One of the things that really has helped American Express is we have reinvented ourselves. So when we started off 163 years ago, we were a freight forwarding company, meaning it covered wagons. We moved goods and services from point A to point B. And you'd say that has nothing to do with being in the payments business. But here's the common theme. We were in the service business. We were serving people. And we started to innovate. And so what I see for our company is I think we're involved right now in what I call the digital transformation. So everything is going digital. But the question is, the physical world is changing as well as the digital world. So I see American Express 20 years from now being far more involved in commerce, not just payments. But what I see that will be very consistent is going to be the service business. There may not be, 20 or 30 years from now, there may not even be any plastic records. Because people have smartphones, right? They're going to do all their payments on their smartphones. We're doing a lot of that right now. So what you have to constantly focus on is innovation and change. But then what you have to do, just as I talk to you in your personal lives, is what are your common themes? What do you stand for? So as a company, 100 years from now, we're still going to stand for service, even though the businesses we're in will be different. And we'll be clear about what the values are. Just as you want to be as a person, clear about the values that you have. Yes?
In 2001, you were inducted into the Junior Achievement Business Hall of Fame. How did you feel knowing that 20 years of hard work at American Express had paid off?
Well, I think one of the things that I believe in strongly for everyone here, you probably heard the phrase, we stand on each other's shoulders. And the reality is there were a lot of people before me, particularly people who didn't get opportunities to run companies who were as good or better than I was. So one is, while I was proud to get the award, what I also did was I stepped back and I said to myself, think of all the people who were denied opportunities because of prejudice or racism that did not get the opportunity. And I'm fortunate because of the struggles and the efforts that they made, giving me the opportunity to be successful. And that's what I think you always want to think about when you're successful, is no one does it alone. All of us are helped by other people in being successful. And the danger that you see is when people say it's all about them. It's not all about them. Many people make a difference and have made a difference in your life, and therefore you have a responsibility and obligation to reach back and break the people. That's what I right here, and then we'll get someone up front. We'll see if there's anyone on this side. All right, yes.
As CEO of such a major company as American Express, are there any major problems that you have encountered in your work? And if so, what were they?
Well, I think there are a lot of problems. I'll tell you 2 or 3 big problems and challenges is you're all aware of 9/11. American Express was right across the street from the World Trade Center. So we had 11 employees that perished. And you can imagine the emotional condition, the psychological state of people who witnessed that horror. And part of what I had to do was not just manage the business, but really help people get through the psychological trauma of that event. The other opportunity and challenge that we had was when you're managing a global business and you're operating in over 150 countries and you have a range of businesses, is how do you set priorities for what to focus on? How do you decide what criteria do you use? And so I spent a lot of time thinking through how to set priorities. And just as each of you has to set priorities, a company has to set priorities. And that becomes a major opportunity and challenge. The other one is that the business world is changing all the time. So what's happening with the digital world is incredible. And so you can think that you have a product that's working really well, and someone literally in 3 weeks can come out with some other product. So you constantly have to be focused on how the competitive environment is changing and how to really make sure you're in a leadership position. Let me ask someone over here, and then I'll come back to you.
How did you make your way all the way from strategic planning all the way to become the chairman of such a large company? Like, what was the process that you went through?
So the question was, how did I make my way from starting off at a low-level position in strategic planning and then to become CEO of the company? Well, first of all, as I often say, again, is when I joined the company, I didn't necessarily think that becoming CEO was going to be an opportunity, nor did I think that I wanted necessarily to be in a large company. But I worked in strategic planning for around 2 years, 2.5 years. And my objective, as I talked to you, is I said, I want to be the best person in strategic planning. Really someone that people will go to when they need their plans done, when they need really good advice. And then I had an opportunity to go into a business that, in fact, was not making much money and was not a business that was highly thought of in the company. So one of the things I've always learned in my career and in life in general is you don't always take the popular course. Sometimes it's useful to take a risk and to do something that other people might say, boy, most people wouldn't go into that business. So people said to me, Ken, this business called merchandise sales, it doesn't make any money. It's not really going to be a good opportunity. It's going to be a risk. And so I went into that business that was losing money. And we turned the business around. And so it was a business that made around $100 million in sales. And in 2.5 years, it was making $750 million in sales. That was viewed as a big turnaround. And it was a lot of fun because you got to work with a lot of different people, come out with a lot of different products. It was really exciting. So that got me noticed in the company. I then was moved into the card business and worked there in several years with a number of jobs. We came out with different products and services, and that business built. And then I worked on some of our international businesses and got experience there. And I think what was important is it was not just the success that I was having in growing revenues or earnings, is people were really looking at, is Ken the type of person who develops people? Does he hire good people? Do people want to follow him? Do they want to work with him? And because those leadership attributes are very, very important in deciding who should become CEO. So those are some of the reasons why I got the opportunity to become CEO.
And all the merchandising that was associated with American Express and the car, that was all part of the company.
Question was all the merchandising. What we did was we sold products all around the world. So furniture, jewelry, even fur coats. So I got to travel all around the world with buyers, and we selected products, and then we had to put together marketing strategies to figure out what were the right products that would go to the right customer, and how would we make money selling those products and services. So that's how we did it. So there's one person here who's been very patient.
What improvements did you make as CEO? What improvements did you make as CEO?
So the question was, what improvements have I made as CEO? I think that the improvements that I've tried to focus on, and the way you find out if you're succeeding is, are you growing revenues? And so our revenues have grown dramatically over the last 12 years. So we were a company that was growing revenues around 8 to 10 billion, and we're now over $30 billion in revenues. We were generating around 1.5 billion, we're now close to 5 billion in earnings. So those were some very important signs. The second is that we diversified our businesses, and so we're not as reliant on one business or one market, and we became more global as a company. But what I'm most proud about is the culture of the company that we've created. So we have a culture that is very service oriented, so very focused on what the customer needs are. People work very well together. People innovate, and people really believe it's an environment that's open to all types of people. And my view is I wanted to be with a company and really to make changes in a company that would align with what my personal values are. And I like the fact that the company views a place where no matter who you are and what you are, you have an opportunity to be successful. That's what I'm most proud of. Let me go over here. So I'm trying to get around so that I give everyone a chance. Yes?
What was it like to play with Julie Firman?
What was it like?
Play with Julie Firman.
What was it like to play with Julius Erving? Well, I'll give you 2 or 3 signs. So when I was in 8th grade, I was practically the same height that I am. So at that stage, when Julius, I guess when we were in 6th, 7th grade, we actually both played forward, and we had a really terrific team. When I got older in high school, I actually switched to point guard, and it was still a lot of fun. I didn't play on his high school team. Julius grew up in Hempstead until he was in 8th grade, and then he moved to Roosevelt. I grew up in Hempstead. I went to the Waldorf School for New York City. We were in different leagues, but we also played on a summer team together. And I played point guard on the team. But what was interesting with Julius is he really became terrific his junior year. And then in college, it was over. Absolutely fantastic. But the point, again, that I'll come back to is he was known growing up as, frankly, being an incredible student. And it was only in high school that people started talking about Julius as a great basketball player. He thinks he can play some golf. Let me go over here, and then here, and then I'll come back. Side.
What hardships have you experienced in your lifetime with American Express?
So the hardships, one of them was clearly that I've experienced at the company. One was, as I said, 9/11 was probably the most challenging because I think whenever lives are lost, that's obviously a very, very challenging situation. I think from a business standpoint, the challenge sometimes comes when you're working with someone that you don't get along with, or you find very difficult. And those experiences are valuable in the sense that you can't always pick who you work with. You can't always put yourself in the best situation. And so while that was challenging, part of what I had to learn was, how do I adjust? When do I stand up? Because sometimes you have to stand up for yourself and say, I don't believe in what you're doing. And in a company context, sometimes employees and leaders don't stand up when they should. And so that was one of the things that I learned early on in my career, is the importance of speaking your mind, standing up, but making sure you know your facts when you're standing up, and you have good reasons to make those points. And then here, right? All right.
So I was wondering, like, you said sometimes you weren't offered business opportunities in the beginning with your race, and like it was harder. Like what kept you from being discouraged and like eventually led you to this?
So the question was, I said I wasn't offered some opportunities and may have had some setbacks, and what really kept me from being discouraged? I think what really kept me being positive was, one, it's very important, as I said, to really work hard at what you do, because then you develop some confidence that I really do know this subject matter. So that if you have a problem or you have a setback, you say, well, maybe I may have had a problem here, or someone doesn't think I've done a good job here, but I've actually got a track record that's pretty good. So you take some confidence from that. I think the second thing that was important is not to take every setback as a setback that is just going to ruin my life. That the fact that I may have gotten a bad grade on a test, or someone didn't like the work that I did, I want to understand why. I want to figure out the reasons how I can do better. But that doesn't mean that I don't have talent and that I'm not good. The third, I think that's very important, that really kept me encouraged, was confidence. Confidence that I would be able to get through that challenge. And that confidence only comes with a real strong belief in values. What do you stand for? What's important to you? And no matter what age, at this stage, it's sometimes useful to step back and say, what do I really want to stand for as a person? What do I want people to think about me? And then when you encounter problems, you have something that can help motivate you and push you through. So that's how I think about it. So I'm going to take a question from you. You
Well,
asked.
first of all, I'm going to say you're one of my corporate heroes. I've waited maybe 10 years to finally get a chance to speak with you or
Thank
interview
you.
you. I happen to know your family members.
Right.
And having an older sibling male and a younger sibling, Stephen, the younger
Right.
one, and Artie, the older
Right.
one, how do you feel, you mentioned family dynamics and the
Right.
importance of family support.
Right.
How do you feel as a middle child, perhaps? Did that help in any of your achievement? Because you talked about
Right.
school and not maybe being the best at school? How did the
Sure.
family dynamics help you?
Well, I think two or three things. One, as I said, is that there was a period of time I wasn't good at school, but then I had become very good at school. So what I want to
To go to law
emphasize
school,
is, just so we're clear, you got to do really well. There may be periods of time that you can get through. But I think what's important about the family dynamic, I was very fortunate that I had two terrific parents, actually had a sister, older brother, a younger brother, is that you learned about support and you learned about unconditional love. You learned that if you failed or succeeded, there were people there for you. And that can be your immediate family, that can be friends, that can be groups. You can create a range of families.
Jack and Jill.
That's right. Really the great companies, in a sense, are companies that people feel emotionally attached to the company. And that's what families are all about.
Thank you so much.
So let me take one more question. I'm going to take it to the back.
I wanted to ask you, what was your first job and how do you feel now that you become the person that you are at this moment?
So the question was, what was my first job and how do I feel now based on what I've accomplished? My first job, actually, was I packed grocery bags at the deli on Franklin Street. That happened to be right across the street from where I lived. And I was 10 years old. And so what I did was pack the bags, I swept the aisles, probably got $5 a day, but that could buy a lot at that time. But what it did teach me is the importance of being responsible, having to show up on time, doing the job, know that what I was doing was going to be inspected by someone, made a big difference. And the way I feel now is the following. One is, I really do believe this. Don't let any job you have define who you are alone. Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to be CEO forever. What's most important is, what does Ken Chenault stand for? What does he do? How does he treat people? Who does he help? So I'm proud about the fact that I'm CEO, but that doesn't define who I am. And I think too many people who've been very successful, in fact, identify their being with their external success. And I think that's a mistake, because you're basically just saying your job defines totally who you are. It's in here that defines you. So thank you very much.